I found out my parents secretly bought my brother a house, but refused to help when my daughter needed surgery. She's adopted, my father said. Not fully family, son. If we're being honest, my mother added. Last night, I sat across from them at dinner. What I said next shattered the family forever. My name is Mark. I'm 36, a taxi driver in a mid-sized city where the airport is always under construction and people still argue about which pizza place is real. I work nights mostly. Fewer tourists, more stories. I keep a thermos of strong coffee, a roll of quarters for parking meters, and a phone charger for every brand because tips happen in small ways. I'm the older son. I grew up being told I was steady, useful, the one who could be left alone with a list and return with everything checked off. My brother, Evan, is 30. He's the golden one. Easy laugh, big dreams. He's allergic to early mornings and long explanations. Mom calls him our sunshine. Dad calls him our hope. I married Anna when I was 26. We rent a 2-bedroom over a pharmacy. Our daughter, Lily, is 8. We adopted her when she was 3 weeks old. She has a small dimple in her left cheek and a loud opinion about socks. She calls every dog sir, even when it's clearly a lady. When I pull up to school in the cab and she sees me, she runs like her backpack is trying to fly away. Taxi work taught me patience. You listen. You don't correct. You drive. You get people where they need to go even when they give you bad directions. That's how I used to handle my family. Let them talk. Not. Take their exits for them. Last winter, Lily's cardiologist said the quiet thing out loud. Surgery within a year. He didn't dramatize it. He explained it like a weather forecast. He drew a simple picture of a heart on the back of a billing sheet and circled the part that needed help. I folded the paper like it was delicate. Anna reached for my sleeve under the table. We drove home without the radio on. I didn't tell my parents that day. I told them a week later when they came over to drop off a box of canning jars Mom found for soup season. They sat at our tiny table and complimented the curtains. I said, Lily will need surgery this year. Mom blinked fast. Dad put his hand on the box like he might lift it and leave. We'll pray, Mom said. We will, Dad echoed. I thought that was the first stone in a wall of support. I thought wrong. But that part comes later. Tonight's scene, a Sunday dinner at my parents' house. Roast chicken, overcooked green beans, Dad's special mashed potatoes that he stirs with a wooden spoon he won't let anyone else touch. Evan is late, as usual. Mom has the news on mute, so the anchor moves his mouth with no sound, like he's telling secrets. I bring a salad because we were told to bring something fresh. Anna sets Lily up with crayons at the end of the table. Lily draws a taxi with wings. Super cab, she says. Evan walks in 30 minutes late with a paper bag from a bakery and a story about traffic. He kisses Mom's cheek. He gives Dad a half hug that looks like a handshake that lost its way. He ruffles Lily's hair and says, How's my favorite lady? Lily says, I'm drawing you a ticket for speeding. He laughs like that's the best joke anyone has ever told. We eat. The conversation is soft and shallow. Work, neighbors, the old man down the street who paints his mailbox every month. I wait for someone to ask about Lily's appointment last week. No one does. I am used to making the first move, so I do. Her oxygen levels are holding. I say. The specialist is optimistic. The surgery window is late summer. Mom nods. She drinks water like she's auditioning for a commercial. Dad says, hospitals are thieves, like that's the same as empathy. Evan says, summer is rough for me. Busy season. He doesn't have a job that has seasons. He has projects that have moods. I start to say something about schedules. Mom interrupts with a bright voice. Speaking of homes, Evan, tell them about the place. My fork stops halfway to my mouth. What place? Evan smiles, a little shy, a little smug. It's nothing yet. Just looking. Dad can't hold it in. Our boy found a cute bungalow near the lake. 2 bedrooms, big yard. Needs work, sure, but bones are good. Mom puts down her glass. We want him settled. He's been unsettled far too long. She looks at me the way she looks at a misaligned picture frame. You know how it is. I say, how what is? She doesn't answer that. She passes the potatoes. Lily leans over her drawing. Can Super Cab land on the roof? Anna says, only if it's reinforced. I watch my parents watching Evan. It's the look of people placing a crown on a head and convincing themselves it's not heavy. I don't ask more questions because I'm not ready for the answers. We finish dinner. We clear plates. Mom washes. I dry. She says, you should really think about moving closer to us. We could help more. I say, we're fine. She says, you always say that. On the way out, Dad hands me an envelope addressed to him and Mom. Since you're going past the post office, he says. It feels light. I tuck it into my jacket. We buckle Lily in. Anna whispers, "You okay?" I lie and say, "Sure." At a red light, I remember the envelope. I open it because I think it's a coupon book or a church flyer. It's an insurance binder. New property. Address I don't know. Policyholder, the Bennett Family Trust. Primary resident, Evan Bennett. The light turns green. Someone honks. I don't drive. For a second, the city goes quiet in that way it only does in your head. Anna puts her hand on my arm. "Mark." I swallow. I feel the old rolls moving around the table like silverware. I hear the sentence I don't want to hear, the one I don't want to repeat. It shows up anyway. When I ask them later, my father will say, "She's adopted." My mother will add, "Not fully family, son, if we're being honest." That's the first trigger. Not the money. The sorting. Last night, I sat across from them at dinner. I said something I'd never said in that house. The sound it made is still in my ears. I'll tell you what I said. But first, how we got here. I was 12 when I learned that being older meant being responsible for other people's mistakes. Evan broke a neighbor's window. I gave up my lawn mowing money to keep Dad from having to deal with paperwork. Mom said, "You're a good brother." Evan said, "Thanks, man," and disappeared with a friend to play video games. At 16, I got my license and became everyone's chauffeur. Not just for errands. For excuses. "Could you swing by and pick up Evan?" He got stuck. Stuck meant bored. At 19, I bought a used Corolla with a cash envelope I'd been feeding since freshman year. Evan called it our car and borrowed it so often I started hiding the keys inside socks. Mom said, "Don't be petty." I fell into taxi driving after a restless semester of community college and a stack of bills that couldn't wait for me to figure out who I was. What I liked about the job: start meter, end meter. Clear lines. People get in with a need. You meet it, you get paid. Not always fairly, but honestly. The city taught me routes the map didn't show. How lights actually cycle. Which alleys are safe. Which bars spit out the loudest liars at 2 a.m. I met Anna at 5:40 a.m. on a February sidewalk. She was late for an opening shift at the bakery. She had a box of croissants that weren't quite right and a frown that was. I got her there before the ovens beeped. She tipped me in pastries and a phone number. We built a life out of early mornings and second chances. Her parents live 3 time zones away. Mine live 15 minutes from our apartment and think that's a moral claim. We decided to adopt after 2 years of trying and 2 years of doctors saying, maybe, and we don't know. The home study felt like an audit. Every drawer, every answer, every story examined. We passed because we told the truth and because we're boring in the best ways. Lily arrived and turned boring into bright. She hates blueberries unless they're in pancakes. She sings to the vacuum. She loves maps. She'll sit in the back of the cab with my old atlas and trace lines like she's planning a heist. Mom said, "She's sweet." And then, later, in the kitchen when she thought Anna couldn't hear, "It's just different." Dad nodded into his coffee. "Blood is blood." I said, "Family is work." Mom frowned. "Don't be dramatic." The heart murmur came during a routine check. The cardiologist wrote the diagnosis in clear letters. He didn't flinch when Anna cried. He said, "This is common and reparable." Common sounded like a lie. Reparable sounded like a map. We followed it. Appointments, scans, EKGs that looked like seismographs of a quiet earthquake. Money shifted from something we watched to something we chased. Insurance is a game where they change the rules mid-hand. I learned new words: deductible, pre-authorization, out-of-pocket maximum. I started using a binder with tabs like a paralegal. We cut luxuries no one would miss. I took more night shifts. Anna picked up extra bakery hours when the morning crew called out. Lily got used to falling asleep to the sound of my keys at 2 a.m. I tried to be quiet and failed. She'd sit up and whisper, "Hi, Papa," and I'd meld into a chair. I told my parents the facts, not the totals. I asked for help with logistics, not cash. "Could you do school pickup on Thursdays?" I asked. "Maybe," Mom said, like I'd offered her a Groupon. "We have choir." Dad said, "Thursdays are my poker nights." Evan said, "I'm slammed," which meant he was not. Meanwhile, Evan kept pivoting. He sold vintage shirts online. He managed a friend's band for 3 weeks. He consulted on a food truck. He moved back home because rent is a trap. He called me late at night to ask, "How do you talk to credit card companies?" I told him. He said, "You're a lifesaver," and then didn't do the thing I told him. Small humiliations piled up like dirty dishes. Mom asked if we could keep Lily's situation private because not everyone understands adoption or medical stuff. Dad rolled his eyes when I corrected him for saying real parents, about Lily's birth parents. Evan posted a photo of Lily on his Instagram without asking and captioned it Uncle Life with a heart emoji trio. When Anna asked him to take it down, he said, "Relax, it's just a pic. I let too many things pass because I picked my battles the way a poor person picks apples, carefully, with an eye to bruises I can't afford." Then the first big bill hit. Insurance denied a test because the specialist had the wrong code next to his name. I called. I waited. I stayed polite. It got fixed. The second bill was a deductible. The third was a mystery charge that turned out to be the fee for having a cardiologist read a scan their own machine produced. I paid what I could, planned for the rest, and told myself, we are okay. We're doing it. Then, the envelope. The binder. The address I didn't know. I asked my parents the next day. Not a text. I drove over between fairs and rang the bell. Mom opened the door with the look that says, "We weren't expecting a pop-in, but we're dressed for it." I held up the binder. "What's this?" Dad came down the hall with his glasses in his hand. He saw the papers. He didn't even pretend. "We helped your brother," he said. "How much is helped?" I asked. Mom said, "That's not the point." "What is the point?" "The point," Dad said, slow, like he was explaining a drill to a rookie, "is that Evan is starting his life. He needs a foundation." I stared at him. "We asked you to be at a doctor's appointment, and you said choir." Mom's mouth pinched. "We're doing what we can." I said it then, soft because I still believed softness would help. "Lily needs surgery this year." Mom looked at the kitchen clock. Dad looked at his coffee. "We'll pray," he said again. "Prayer is good," I said. "Action is better." Mom's eyes cooled. "We've done enough for you." There it was. The invoice for being their child. Evan arrived mid-conversation with a bag of takeout and saved us from saying anything honest. He saw the binder and grinned. "You saw," he said. "It's not a mansion. Just a start." "Congrats," I said. It tasted like aluminum. Later that week we were invited to Sunday dinner again. The one with the roast chicken and the quiet TV anchor. I went because I still believed in the power of showing up. They gave me a line to hold. I took it. I'm done with that now. The thing that broke me wasn't the purchase. It was the sorting. The sentence, "She's adopted." The add-on, "Not fully family." A scale in their heads where blood weighs more than time. Where a signature on a deed matters more than a signature on an adoption certificate. A family that uses the word blessing like a coupon. I left that dinner with a decision heavy and simple. The kind that clicks into place like a seat belt before the crash you no longer plan to prevent. Last night's dinner started normal. Mom asked about fares like it's still 1998 and cash is king. Do people even take taxis anymore? Dad asked like I might say we stopped last week. Evan scrolled and laughed at something that happened only on his phone. Anna stayed home. We agreed one of us would keep Lily's bedtime on schedule. I brought a folder because I knew I needed props. People like my parents respect paper. When plates were mostly empty and the TV anchor's silent mouth looked exhausted from all the news he wasn't allowed to tell us, I set the folder on the table. I took out 2 pages. "This," I said, tapping the first, "is the hospital's estimate for Lily's surgery. This," I tapped the second, "is a photo of her from last week, riding a carousel. She's holding cotton candy like it's a diploma." Mom flinched at the picture. Dad leaned back. "Why are you making a scene?" "I'm making a point," I said. Evan squinted. "Dude, why bring that here?" "Because here is where the math fails," I said. "Here is where you told me last week that Lily is not fully family. I want you to look at her face while you say it again." Mom shook her head. "We never said that." "You did," I said, steady. Dad said, "She's adopted." "You said, 'Not fully family, son,' if we're being honest." I kept my voice low because I wasn't there to perform. I was there to set terms. Dad huffed. "You're twisting us." "No," I said. "I'm translating you." Evan put his phone down like something serious had finally started. "We're all stressed," he said. "Money makes people weird." "This isn't about money," I said. "It's about hierarchy. It's about how you decide who counts." Dad's face got that hard look it gets when the lawnmower won't start. "We helped your brother buy a house because he needs stability. You have a place. You're fine. We rent above a pharmacy," I said. "Fine is not the measurement. Need is." Mom's eyes filled with shiny tears she can summon for any crisis, including not being the center of a conversation. "How can you talk to us like this in our home?" "Because this is where you talk to me like I'm an ATM who forgot his PIN," I said. "I'm done." Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low and sharp. "Careful." I leaned back. "No." The word hung there like a new picture on a blank wall. "I'm setting boundaries," I said. "I should have done it 20 years ago. Here they are." We will pay for Lily's surgery ourselves. We will not take money from you if it comes with the price tag of disrespect. We will not co-sign anything for Evan. We will not be your emergency contact when a project fails or a pipe bursts or a credit card needs a clean name. Mom covered her mouth like I'd cursed. I hadn't. I was being cleaner than I've ever been. Dad's jaw moved like he was chewing nails. You're ungrateful. I'm awake, I said. Evan tried one more time to be the hero. Bro, why are you burning bridges? Over a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding would be saying the wrong thing, I said. You said the real thing. I finally believed you. Mom sniffed. We didn't mean she's not family like that. We meant it's different. Different how? I asked. Different like you don't see her. Different like you get to opt out when it's hard. Different like you can buy a house for one child and tell another his child is a footnote. Dad pushed back his chair. The leg scraped. Get out. I will, I said, standing. My knees felt weirdly light, like the air had changed. But hear me first. I looked at both of them until they stopped moving. This isn't about revenge, I said. This is about closure. No one spoke. Even the refrigerator took a breath. I'm closing the account where I pay with my silence, I said. I'm closing the door where you come into my home with conditions. I'm closing the loop where Evan messes up and I fix it. You can call it cruel. I call it parenting my own family. Mom whispered, if you walk out, don't come back asking for anything. I won't, I said. And I won't come back to explain adoption to people who use it as a way to grade a child. Evan reached for humor and missed. 4th of July is going to be awkward. It'll be quiet, I said. I gathered the papers. I put the photo of Lily back in the folder. I left the estimate on the table. You can keep that, I said. It's what respect costs. We're paying it. I walked to the door. Mom said my name the way you call a dog who's about to bolt into the street. I didn't turn. I opened the door. I stepped into air that felt like air. The first thing I did when I got home was hug Anna longer than usual. She pulled back, looked at my face, and nodded like she understood without words. Lily was asleep. Her chest rose and fell in a rhythm I will never take for granted. The next morning my phone started its performance. 7:12 a.m. Mom, we should talk about last night. You overreacted. 7:16 a.m. Dad, return the spare key. 7:17 a.m. Dad, and the drill. 7:25 a.m. Evan, dude, yikes. Mom's a wreck. 7:26 a.m. Evan, just say sorry. 7:41 a.m. Unknown number. Family meeting tonight. 6 p.m. Aunt Barb. She loves committees and potato salad. I put the phone face down. I made Lily's lunch. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, a note that said, "You are brave." I drove the morning airport run and pretended not to hear my phone vibrate like a trapped bee. At noon, I called the hospital billing department to confirm the payment plan we'd set up weeks ago. The one I kept telling myself was a parachute and not a curse. The woman on the line had a voice that sounded like warm socks. "We can start at $400 a month," she said. "If anything changes, you call me. We don't send people to collections without trying to help." I wrote her name down. I said, "Thank you," like she had invented the concept. At 2 p.m. Mom called. I answered because I want the right kind of fight. The one where you show up and say your lines clearly. "I don't understand how you can be so cruel," she started. "I'm not being cruel," I said. "I'm being clear. We're your parents." "You are," I said. "You're not my judges. And you don't get to downgrade my daughter to make your choices look better." Silence. Then the sigh that means she's collecting tears for later. "Your father is very upset." "He'll live," I said. "So will we." By evening, the family chat looked like a bulletin board for a small-town drama club. Aunt Barb, "We must set aside differences." Cousin Jess, "Blood is thicker than water." Uncle Pete, "Kids today are so sensitive." My cousin Ben DM'd me separately. "Proud of you. I've got a spare AC unit if you need one." I sent him a heart. I muted the main chat. At 6:03 p.m., there was a knock like a landlord's. I checked the peephole. "Dad." I opened with the chain on. He held up the spare key like a witness holds up an exhibit. "Returning this," he said. He put it on my palm. It was warm from his fist. "You'll be back when you need something." "I need you to stop saying that," I said. His mouth tilted. "We'll see." I closed the door. I put the key in a drawer with batteries and rubber bands and other things that are useful but not urgent. The next day, Evan called 12 times. I answered on the 13th because curiosity isn't a virtue. "Bro," he said, "this is getting out of hand." Mom didn't sleep. "She'll sleep tonight," I said. "Try chamomile." He laughed like I was being funny on purpose. "Seriously, you know they didn't mean it like that. They're old school. Old school is for music, not ethics, I said. You're really going to ice us out? Over a sentence. It wasn't a sentence, I said. It was a policy. He exhaled. Whatever. Can you come by Saturday to look at the inspection report? The house has some weird wiring. Dad says you know this stuff. No, I said. A beat. No. No, I repeated. Hire an electrician. He hung up without saying bye. Progress, in a way. He used to believe I was an appliance. That week, I made a list titled New Rules. I wrote them on an index card and stuck it to the inside of a cabinet like a restaurant's food safety certificate. No loans. No co-signing. No emergency rescues. One channel of contact. Email. No late-night texts. No drive-bys. Any visit requires respect for Lily. One comment, and the visit ends. Anna read it and kissed the top of my head. I like this Mark, she said. He's boring in a brave way. We told Lily a kid version. We're taking a break from Nana and Papa, I said in the car after school. Grown-up feelings got tangled. She was quiet for a minute, thinking like she does with her whole face. Is it about me? She asked. No, I said. It's about how we protect our home. Do you still love them? I love us more, I said. That's what dads are supposed to do. She nodded, satisfied. Can we get ice cream? We got ice cream. She picked rainbow sprinkles. I picked chocolate because sometimes you say yes twice. The date came. July 18th. I wrote it in the calendar in big block letters. We built a plan like a bridge. Neighbor on call for the cat. Anna's coworker on call for bread deliveries if she needed to bow out. My boss approved time off. The night before, I lay awake and counted the tiny sounds the apartment makes in the dark. The radiator's hiccup. The upstairs neighbor's chair. Lily's breath. At the hospital, Lily was braver than anyone. She asked the anesthesiologist if the mask came in purple. It didn't. She accepted teal. She squeezed my fingers like a code. I squeezed back. In the waiting room, I sat under a TV that showed daytime court shows and tried to remember how to breathe. The surgeon came out 4 hours later with a face that said, "Good news." He said the words. I heard them like water. I sent one email to the family address I'd made for this. Surgery successful. Recovery going well. We will update when we're ready. My mother responded with a prayer hands emoji and, so glad. When can we visit? My father wrote, let us know if you need anything. Evan wrote, proud of you, bro. I closed the email and went back to Lily's room where the machines beeped in a language I was learning to not fear. Recovery was slow and holy. We measured meds and naps like ingredients. Anna kept a notebook with times and doses. I tracked Lily's steps to the bathroom like they were miles. Friends came with casseroles and carpool offers. Our upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Shaw, left a bag of books and a note that said, we're here. I cried at the sink when no one was watching. I cried at the sink when Anna was watching. She put my head against her shoulder and said, let it out. We'll refill. My parents texted every few days with questions that felt like inspections. Is the scar big? Will there be restrictions? When is she back to normal? I answered when I felt generous and ignored when I didn't. Generosity is a resource. I treat it like money now. 2 weeks later, Mom tried a different angle. We made extra lasagna, she wrote. Can we drop it off? I said, you can leave it with the doorman downstairs. We don't have a doorman. It was my way of saying, door stays closed unless your hands are empty of conditions. Evan posted a photo of his new backyard with a caption about hard work paying off. He tagged a grill brand. I didn't look long. I don't need to feed the part of me that counts someone else's blessings and calls it theft. I fed my daughter soup instead and watched her fall asleep with a sticker from the nurse still on her shirt. 3 weeks out, Lily wanted the park. We went. She walked slow, like the world had become a place you taste. She climbed the small slide and sat at the top, king of something gentle. Watch me, she said. I watched. She slid. She laughed like a window opening. That night, I made another list called What Changes. I stopped explaining adoption to people who use it to rank love. I stopped taking calls that start with, do you have a minute? And end an hour later with me fixing a problem I didn't create. I save money like respect, automatically, before anyone else can ask for it. I let silence be an answer. I slept. Real sleep. The kind where you wake up and the world doesn't feel like an unpaid bill.